Hey and welcome. Tonight we're stepping back into the world of a medieval woman, not a queen or noble, but someone history often forgets, the medieval peasant woman. You'll live her life, feel her struggles, and see just how hard survival truly was. If you enjoy these slow, quiet stories from the past, don't forget to subscribe and let me know in the comments. Where are you listening from, and what time is it right now where you are? Now, get comfortable, take a deep breath, and let's begin. Let yourself drift. You are not here anymore. You are somewhere else entirely. You are in a small cottage, somewhere deep in the countryside of medieval Europe. It is the 14th century. The world is colder here, harsher, simpler in some ways, but far more demanding in others. The comforts of modern life, heat, plumbing, electricity, none of that exists here. There are no soft pajamas, no mattresses, no glass windows, only rough wool, clay, iron, stone, straw, and yet, despite it all, you are alive. You are a woman, a daughter of this hard land. This day will be like every other before it. You must endure it, and you will. Your eyes flutter open in the pre-dawn gloom. It is still early. The world is quiet. There is no clock ticking in your room, no phone lighting up, just the slow breath of sleeping bodies around you, your children perhaps, or your elderly mother, who shares your bed. You lie on your back, your body stiff from the straw mattress beneath you. Your neck aches faintly, a reminder of the hard wooden headboard and the chill that never fully leaves your bones. The bed is little more than a wooden frame stuffed with old hay, covered in coarse linen, and layered with woolen blankets that carry the scent of animals and smoke. Your nose twitches. The air is cold and damp. There's a slight draft slipping in through the thatched roof above, brushing over your cheek. You wrap your arms around yourself for a moment longer, clinging to the last warmth of the night, before finally deciding to rise. You sit up slowly, rubbing sleep from your eyes. The room is nearly pitch black, lit only by the faintest blue-grey haze creeping in from a tiny window, no more than a small opening shuttered with wooden slats. There is no glass, only a sliver of the sky visible through the gap. Your body complains as you stretch. Your back is sore, your joints pop softly. You slept in your shift, the same one you've worn every night this week. The linen is rough, and smells of ash and body oil. There is no fresh laundry waiting for you, no wardrobe of options. You have 2 shifts total, one for wear, one for wash, and the one you aren't wearing is still damp from yesterday's rinse. The room is one large space, shared by everyone. Your children sleep in a heap near the hearth, curled like kittens beneath patchwork quilts. In the far corner, a goat stirs restlessly in its pen. You can hear the soft cluck of chickens nearby, roosting on the low rafters or nesting beside the wall. Animals share the house with you. There is nowhere else for them to go. They help keep it warm. They are part of the household, just as much as the humans. You rise carefully and cross the packed dirt floor, your bare feet instantly chilled. The surface is uneven, hard and gritty beneath your soles. No rugs, no tiles, only earth. You pull a woolen shawl around your shoulders and step over the sleeping forms of your children, careful not to wake them. Your breath fogs in the cold. At the hearth, the fire is nearly dead. You kneel before it and stir the ashes with a poker. A faint red glow remains. Good. That means you won't need to start from scratch. You add a few twigs, then gently blow. Your breath is slow and steady, coaxing the embers back to life. Tiny sparks jump to life. You add more fuel, carefully layering dry kindling. The warmth begins to grow. You feel it on your face first, then your hands. The hearth is the heart of the home. Without it, there is no heat, no cooking, no comfort. Once the fire is stable, you add a pot of water to the iron hook above the flames. It will be needed soon for cooking, washing, and warming. You don't have a kitchen, no sink, no stove, no counters, just a single fire in the center of the room. Everything happens here. You've been tending this hearth since you were strong enough to lift a pot. It's second nature. Now that the fire is lit, it's time to prepare for the day. You step outside into the early morning. The door creaks as it opens. It's made of rough-hewn wood, fitted into place by hand, and held shut with a wooden peg. Outside, the sky is still dark, a dull blue stretching over the silhouette of trees and rooftops. The air smells of frost and chimney smoke. You take a deep breath, filling your lungs with cold air. Your breath turns to mist as you walk toward the well. 2 wooden buckets in hand. The village is still asleep. Only a few distant sounds can be heard. The call of a bird, the rustle of wind through the trees, the distant moo of a cow. Your footsteps crunch softly on the path. The well is a short walk from your cottage, shared by several nearby families. Its stones are slick with moss, and the rope is stiff with morning dew. You lower the bucket carefully, hand over hand, until it splashes into the dark water below. Then slowly, you pull it up. The rope bites into your palms. The water sloshes. Your arms ache with the weight. You do this every day, sometimes twice, sometimes more. You fill the second bucket, then head back to the house, your arms straining with the burden. Inside, the fire is stronger now. You pour water into a clay basin, dipping a cloth to wipe your face. There is no mirror. You wash by feel. The cloth is stiff, the water cold, but it wakes you up. You rub your hands, your neck, the back of your ears. Then you do the same for the children as they wake, one by one, sleepy-eyed and tousle-haired. You begin breakfast. There's a bit of barley left. You grind some grains in the quern stone, a flat stone tool with a heavy upper stone, which you turn in slow circles by hand. The work is exhausting, repetitive, and noisy, but it's necessary. You scoop the crushed meal into the pot and stir it into the warming water. It thickens slowly, becoming a simple pottage. There is no milk today. The goat is drying out. No fruit, either. It's winter, but there are onions hanging in the rafters, their skins papery and dry. You slice one into the pot. The smell stings your nose. This is your morning meal. Simple, functional, enough to fill the belly and keep you going. You serve your children first, handing each a wooden bowl and a spoon carved from horn. They eat quietly, grateful. You eat last, sitting on a low stool by the hearth, warming your feet near the fire. The food is bland, but comforting. You're used to it. Once everyone is fed, it's time to dress. You pull your clothes from a wooden chest, simple garments you've mended many times. A linen chemise, a wool kirtle, a thick apron, woolen hose, held up by garters. You wrap a belt around your waist, tie a coif over your braided hair, and slip your feet into leather shoes worn soft from use. There are no laces, no buttons. Everything is tied, pinned or wrapped. The layers are heavy, but they keep you warm. As the light grows stronger, the village begins to wake. Smoke rises from neighboring chimneys. Roosters crow, doors creak open. You see other women carrying buckets, tending fires, shoeing chickens. Everyone moves with the same quiet purpose. There are no idle hands here. Every person has work to do. You step outside again, this time to tend to your garden. The soil is hard, but you pull a few root vegetables from the cold earth. Turnips, mostly. They'll go into dinner tonight. You check the hen house. 1 egg, still warm. A small gift. Later, you'll need to spin wool, patch your husband's tunic, and gather herbs from the edge of the forest. You'll sweep the floor again, haul more water, and start baking the next batch of bread if the yeast hasn't gone bad. There's always something. And this was only the first hour of your day. Most modern people wouldn't make it past this point. The cold, the hunger, the weight of expectation. But you carry it all with quiet strength. Because you have to. Because no one else will do it for you. Because this is what it means to survive. You are not a noble woman, not a princess. You are not protected or pampered. You are a peasant woman, and this is your world. Still, as the sun finally peaks over the hills and bathes the village in gold, you pause for a moment. You breathe it in. There is beauty here. In the smoke curling from chimneys, in the rhythmic clatter of wooden wheels, in the sound of your children laughing as they chase a chicken across the yard. This life is hard, brutally hard, but it is real. You look at the rising sun and think to yourself, just for a moment, that maybe, just maybe, this day will be a good one. Now rest easy, listener. You have felt the first morning in the life of a medieval woman, and the day has only just begun. You're still in that little cottage, deep in the quiet heart of medieval Europe. The morning is no longer a whisper. It's awake now, alive, with subtle movement. The birds have begun their calls in full chorus. Smoke spirals into the pale sky from neighboring homes. Wooden doors creak open. Buckets slosh with well water. The gentle thud of broom against dirt rises and falls like a drumbeat of the village's heartbeat. You, the medieval woman, are already well into your day. You've served breakfast, fed the animals, brushed the children's tangled hair with a wooden comb carved by your own father. You've tied their cloaks and sent the older ones to fetch kindling, or perhaps to help in the fields. Your own hands, they are red with cold water, raw from scrubbing, smelling faintly of ash and wool fat. There is no break now, not even for a moment. You lift a wooden pail filled with lukewarm water and set it down near the basin. The washing must begin, not for you, your body will wait, but the laundry, the linens, the endless fabric caked in life's remains, dirt, soot, food, sweat, waste. It cannot wash itself. You rub the first cloth on a ribbed washboard, using a mix of water and grey soap you made from animal fat and wood ash weeks ago. It stings your knuckles. The linen is stiff, heavy. You smack it against a stone to loosen the dirt. Your arms ache from the effort. The water goes cold almost immediately. Your children's shifts, your husband's hose, the cloth wrappings from last month's wound on your father's leg, all of it must be cleaned by hand, wrung out with force, and hung to dry in the weak sunlight, if the rain holds off. And you do it quietly, not because you're used to it, but because there's no other choice. Washing clothing is just the beginning. Cleanliness is not luxury. It's not scented soaps or steamy baths. It's practicality. It's survival. It's scraping off the dirt of labor so disease doesn't find easy entry. You do what you can with what you have. You scrub your hands again in the basin once the washing is done. The water is murky now, grey with soap, brown with the dust of life. Your fingernails are chipped, your wrists sore, and still, you reach for a fresh cloth. You soak it again, and begin wiping down the interior walls of the cottage. The soot from the hearth blackens everything. The ceiling beams are thick with smoke. The stone walls are streaked with ash. You don't clean for pride. You clean to breathe. Next, the floor. It's made of dirt, packed tight and solid, but it still gets filthy. You sprinkle it with clean straw and sweep it in long, patient strokes. There is no carpet, no vacuum, just a broom made from tied reeds and your own steady hand. It takes time, but it makes a difference. At midday you rest. Briefly, you sit outside, back resting against the stone wall of your home. Your skirts are dusty, your arms are flecked with soap and mud, but the breeze is soft, and you allow yourself to breathe. You glance at your hands. They are not soft. The skin is thick. Your knuckles are darkened. These are not hands that have ever known leisure. These are the hands of every woman you've ever known. Your mother, her mother, all the women who lived and died in these cottages, doing the same work every day, in every season, without question. There are days when your back screams from the weight of water buckets, when your fingers bleed from threadbare cloth, when your knees crack as you rise from scrubbing the floor. But there's a kind of pride there too, because the world runs on your labor, though no one writes it down. Now it's time to prepare the bath, not for yourself, but for the infant perhaps. You heat a small pot of water over the fire, then mix it with cold in a wooden bowl. You test it with your elbow, like your mother taught you. It's barely warm, enough for comfort, not luxury. Wash the baby quickly, carefully. The soap is pungent, the cloth, stiff, the baby squeals. But when it's done, you wrap them tightly in a clean linen wrap, and kiss their forehead. Their tiny hands clutch your finger, and for a moment, all is right. Your own body aches for warmth, for cleansing, but you wait. Baths are rare, maybe once a week in summer, once a month in winter. Water is precious, heat is more precious still. When you do bathe, it will be quick, modest, cold. You'll crouch beside a basin behind a curtain, while your sister or daughter pours water from a jug. You'll scrub with a rag, rinse with a splash, dry with a cloth that smells of smoke. You'll emerge shivering, but relieved. Tonight you will scrape the dirt from beneath your nails, and brush your teeth with a twig dipped in salt. You'll comb the lice from your child's hair, and rub garlic and vinegar behind their ears to keep the pests at bay. You'll sew patches onto your husband's tunic by candlelight, the wax dripping onto your fingers, and before sleep, you'll dip a cloth into lavender water and wipe your feet, because even if they hurt, even if they're swollen, they must be clean before bed. You live in a world without sanitation, without modern medicine, without soap that smells of flowers, and yet you find ways to be clean, because cleanliness is the thin line between life and death, not glamorous, not pleasant, but essential. And as you tuck your youngest child into bed, you hum a soft melody, the same one your mother sang,
the same one her mother sang before her. Your body is tired, your eyes are heavy, but your world is orderly, clean fed, and somehow, in the absence of everything modern, that is enough. Rest now, you've survived another morning.
The wind has shifted slightly now. You can feel it slipping through the gaps in the wooden slats of your shutters, pressing its cool breath against the back of your neck. The sun has crept further up into the sky, though the warmth it offers is mild at best. It is still morning, late enough that the village is in full motion, but early enough that the long arc of the day stretches far ahead. Inside the cottage, you've already tended to the essential tasks, coaxing life from dying coals, stirring the porridge, washing faces sticky with sleep, brushing crumbs from the table, lifting toddlers, lifting buckets, lifting spirits. And now for a rare moment, you have a sliver of time to yourself, a pocket of stillness before the next chore calls your name. You sit down on the edge of your low wooden bed, the straw-filled mattress still slightly flattened from the night's rest. The blankets are rumpled, but they will be left that way. There are no duvets to straighten, no soft linens to fold, only the scratchy wool, patched and smelling of smoke, which has warmed your bones through many seasons of frost. You run your hands down the length of your arms. Your shift, your linen underdress, is thin, worn soft from 100 washes and countless wears. It is pale in color, stained in places with grease, ash, and milk. It clings to your skin, not because it's tailored, but because it's been mended so many times that it's become molded to your shape. It is not meant to be seen. The shift is your base layer, the one that lies closest to your body, absorbing the sweat and dirt and strain of each day, protecting your outer garments from becoming soiled too quickly. But even this underlayer is precious. You have only one other shift, and if this one tears or frays beyond repair, you will have to patch it again and again. It is time to dress for the full weight of the day ahead. You begin, as always, with your legs. There are no tights, no elastic, no zippers or seamless fabric. You reach for your hose, long tubes of wool, one for each leg, dyed a deep brown the last time you had access to walnut husks. You pull them up slowly, feeling the familiar scratch of rough-spun fabric against your calves and thighs. They don't stay up on their own, so you tie them in place with garters, long ribbons of wool or linen, wrapped tightly just above the knee and knotted to keep the hose from sagging. They are not warm, not really, but they are warmer than bare skin. In winter, they can be the thin line between endurance and illness. Next, the kirtle. You reach for it from the wooden chest at the foot of your bed. It's heavy with the weight of long days and endless wear. The fabric is thick wool, dyed a dull grayish blue with woad the year before. It was once brighter, almost vibrant, but time and weather have dulled it to something closer to ash. You slip it over your head and pull it down into place. The sleeves are long, extending to your wrists, and the neckline is modest, just a soft scooped opening with a bit of frayed hemming. There is no embroidery, no embellishment. It is purely practical. The kirtle fits snugly, shaped by countless hours of wear, though you've added new seams here and there as your body has changed, especially after childbirth. You tie the sides together with thin cords threaded through reinforced holes. There are no buttons, no laces with brass tips, just loops and ties, hand-sewn and worn thin. Once it's secured, you feel the familiar tug of the fabric across your shoulders. You test the sleeves with a stretch. Good. Still sturdy, still strong. Over the kirtle, you wrap your apron. This is your true armor. It is made from the thickest cloth you own, undyed heavy linen, and covered in old stains from everything imaginable. Flour, ash, milk, herbs, blood, berries. You tie it firmly at the waist with two thick cords. The apron is long, reaching nearly to your ankles, and you fold it in the middle before knotting it tightly, creating an extra layer over your thighs. This apron will bear the brunt of your work. You'll wipe your hands on it dozens of times before the day is through, after kneading bread, after milking the goat, after gutting fish, after wiping a child's nose. It will be your towel, your napkin, your potholder, your rag. By nightfall, it will be nearly black with the record of your labor. Around your waist, you loop your belt. It is leather cracked in places, but still strong. You made it yourself, long ago from a hide, traded at the market. It holds the small pouch that contains your sewing kit, a coin or two, perhaps a key to the grain bin, or the storage chest. From it hangs a knife, small but sharp enough for everyday tasks. You feel better with it near you, not for protection, but for usefulness. Next comes your headdress. You've already braided your hair tightly, long strands wound into a coil at the back of your head, and secured with pins made of bone. You can't wear it loose. That would be shameful. Only unmarried girls wear their hair unbound, and even they are expected to keep it tidy. You reach for your coif, a square of linen, folded into a triangle, placed over your hair, and tied snugly beneath your chin. It keeps your hair clean, keeps dust out, keeps the appearance of modesty. In the village, women are known by their appearance as much as by their names. A loose head covering is the first sign of laziness or scandal. You don't want either. On special days, you might wear a wimple, fabric wrapped around the neck and chin, but today is a working day. The coif will do. Your shoes are the last piece. You find them near the hearth, where they were left to dry after last night's rain. They are made of leather, stitched by hand, and softened by time. The soles are thin. There is no padding. You feel every stone, every root, every twist of earth beneath them. You slide your feet in carefully. They are stiff from the cold. No socks, just hose. The shoes fasten with a simple toggle. You test the fit. They're tight. They always are, after damp weather. You are dressed now, and yet there's something ceremonial about it. You dress not to be seen, not for beauty, but because each layer of cloth is a signal to the world. You are working. You are present. You are prepared. Still there's something inside you, some quiet part, that wants to look nice. Not for a man, not for status, just for you, for the memory of what it feels like to see yourself and smile. So you walk back to the small wooden chest, open the lid. Inside, tucked between a folded shawl and an old spindle, you find a tiny scrap of polished metal, your mirror. It's barely larger than your palm. Distorted, blurry, but it reflects just enough. You lift it, tilt it, and catch a glimpse of yourself. Your cheeks are pale, your lips are dry, there's a smudge of soot on your temple, but your eyes are sharp, focused, awake. Pinch your cheeks, run your fingers over your brows, pulling them into place. There is no rouge, no perfume, but you find a small sprig of rosemary and tuck it behind your ear. Then you smile, just a little, and that's enough, because in a world that asks you to give everything, every day, without complaint, this moment is yours. When you step outside, your appearance will say everything that needs to be said. You are modest, and even though the wind may whip your skirts and the mud may stain your hem by midday, you will hold yourself tall. You are a medieval woman. You have no mirror to flatter you, no rich gowns to dazzle, but you have your strength. And that, in this world, is more than most. Now, take a breath. Feel the wool against your skin, the belt at your waist, the soft tug of the coif beneath your chin. You're still here, still wrapped in the soft wool of your apron, still breathing the faint earthy smoke that clings to the walls of your cottage like memory. The morning is passing gently now. The light is more golden, warm enough to remind you that time is moving, but still pale enough to keep the chill close. Your chores are half finished, but your stomach has noticed the hour. It rumbles softly, an old companion that speaks not in words but in need. You're used to that feeling. The quiet whisper of hunger is a sound that lives inside you most days. It isn't always painful. Sometimes, it's just a kind of emptiness, familiar, whispering, lingering behind the busyness of everything else. You rub your belly gently and begin to think about the next meal, because food in your world is never taken for granted. It is not a pleasure, it is not a convenience, it is not waiting in a cupboard or offered from a glowing machine. It is something earned with aching backs and cracked fingers. It is something stretched, preserved, begged for, grown, shared, blessed, and mourned when lost. You rise and begin the first steps toward preparing the midday meal, the heart of every day, feeding your household inside your cottage. The hearth is still warm from morning's fire. A blackened pot rests beside the stonework, waiting. You empty the last of the morning's water into it, and hang it once again over the flame. You know what you're making before you even begin. You always know. Pottage. It's always pottage. Sometimes thick, sometimes thin, sometimes flecked with bits of meat, sometimes not, but always, it is the center of your table. A mix of whatever you have. Grains, beans, root vegetables, wild greens, herbs, Maybe a few scraps of yesterday's bread crumbled in for texture. Today, you have barley, onion, a handful of leeks, some wild parsley you gathered yesterday on the way back from the stream, a little salt, and a dried heel of rye bread. You chop the vegetables on a rough board. Your knife is small but sharp. The onion stings your eyes, but the smell of it sizzling in the pot is comforting. You add a pinch of herbs and stir, with a wooden spoon worn smooth by time and repetition. There is no oil, no butter, no cream. You don't have such luxuries. The pot begins to bubble. The smell fills the air. Your children sit nearby, watching. They don't ask for meat. They know better. They just wait. What you actually eat. The peasant woman's diet. Your daily meals follow a pattern that hasn't changed in generations. In the morning, porridge, barley, or oats, boiled in water with a bit of salt, perhaps sweetened with honey if you're lucky, or thickened with milk, if the goat's giving any. At midday, pottage, a stew of vegetables and grains, sometimes lentils or beans, often with greens you've gathered from the woods or garden, nettle, dandelion, chickweed, always served with bread, if you have it. At night, another bowl of pottage, maybe some leftover root vegetables roasted on the hearth, sometimes just bread and ale. Your bread is dark, coarse and heavy, made of rye, barley, or sometimes muslin, a medieval mix of rye and wheat. It's baked in a communal oven in the village, once or twice a week. You slice it thin to make it last. You make cheese when you can, from goat's or sheep's milk. You churn butter by hand. You dry apples in the autumn, pickle cabbage in barrels, preserve herbs in salt. You scrape the meat from bones and save the fat in little jars. Nothing is wasted. Nothing can be. And still you often go to bed hungry, not because you've done something wrong, but because that is the nature of life here. There is never quite enough. A life without sugar, spice or choice. You've never tasted sugar, not once. Perhaps you've heard of it, from traveling merchants or noble travelers. A fine white powder sweeter than honey, shipped from lands across the sea. You've seen one small cube once, offered as a miracle during childbirth to another woman. You've never held it in your hands. Spices are for the rich, the lords, the monasteries. You've heard the priest mention pepper in sermons, a rare thing used to flavor dishes in the manor. Maybe a noble woman has cloves or cinnamon tucked away in a velvet pouch, but not you. Your world tastes of onion, salt, and wood smoke. It tastes of leeks and vinegar, and garlic. It tastes of grain, of survival. You dream of fruit in the summer, berries picked from brambles, apples from the trees, a plum when it's in season. In winter there is no dreaming, only pickled turnip, dried beans, cabbage, barley, lentils. Sometimes you chew dried peas until your jaw aches. Sometimes you swallow broth and pretend it fills you. Sometimes you go without. The fear of hunger. You remember the last bad winter. The snow came early, and the grain stores were already low. The fields had flooded that spring. There had been rot in the root cellar. The rats had gotten into the barley. You remember rationing what was left, measuring spoonfuls of meal into the pot, watering it down until the stew was little more than flavored liquid. You remember your son asking if there would be more and not knowing what to say. You remember the silence of the village. No birds, no voices, just waiting. You've buried neighbors who didn't make it. You know the sound of a child who cries not from pain, but from emptiness, and then the silence that comes after, when even the crying stops. So when you eat now, even a crust of bread, even a boiled onion, you do not take it for granted. You eat as if your life depends on it, because sometimes it does. Feeding others first, you eat last, always last. You serve your husband first. It is expected, even if he's not home, you set aside a portion for him. Then the children, the elders, the guests if any. Only when all others are fed do you take your bowl. You do not complain. You do not speak of it. It is what your mother did, what her mother did, what every woman you've ever known has done. And if there's not enough, you smile. You say you're not hungry. You busy yourself with cleaning, with gathering herbs, with watching the pot. Sometimes the children ask why you didn't eat. You just say, I had some earlier. You always say that, even when it's not true. Religion and the calendar of fasting, but there are also days when you do not eat because you must not eat. because the church says so, because God is watching. Fasting days are woven through your calendar like thread. You keep them carefully. You keep them carefully. You do not question them. There are over 100 days each year when you cannot eat meat, when you must refrain from eggs, cheese and butter, when your diet shrinks even further, relying only on vegetables, legumes and fish if you can get it.
Event, Advent, Ember Days,
Fridays, vigils before feast days. Sometimes it feels like every other day is a fast, and yet you comply, because faith is the backbone of your life, because sin is everywhere, because obedience is survival. You know that in towns and cities, some people find loopholes, wealthy families buying indulgences or enjoying exotic fish disguised as meat. But here in the village,
you eat your turnips,
your lentils, your flatbread, and you whisper prayers of thanks for even that, because hunger might be holy, but starvation is real. Feast days, rare joy. There are also days of joy, holy days, feast days, weddings, harvest festivals. They are rare, precious, bright stars in the darkness. On these days the village comes alive. Children wear flower crowns. Women bring out their best shawls. The church bells ring louder and longer. There is singing, dancing. The priest blesses the food. And oh, the food.
Eba
Tables grown with bread and roasted meat. Ebates filled with root vegetables and herbs. Boiled eggs. Porridge sweetened with honey. Cheese still soft and white. Butter melted over warm loaves. You see fish, silver and glistening. Apples roasted with cinnamon. Maybe, just maybe, a goose or a hen, roasted on a spit over flame.
You eat until your belly aches.
Until you laugh with full cheeks. Until your children fall asleep in the grass. Stomachs round and happy. These are the days you hold on to. You remember them when the winter is long. You tell stories about them when the fields are bare. You dream of them when chewing on crust and broth.
You feast days
are not just about food. They are about hope. They are about remembering that life is not always suffering. That sometimes joy comes in the form of a warm roll and a bowl of sweet milk. Preservation, preparation, and the weight of feeding others. You are the one who must keep everyone fed. It is your duty, your burden, your invisible labor. You are the one who smokes the meat over the fire, wrapping it in herbs to keep the flies away. You are the one who dries the apples in thin slices, laying them on wicker trays near the window until they harden. You are the one who salves the cheese in cloth and ash, checking it daily for mold. You pickle the cabbage, salt the beans, pack herbs in earthen jars. You keep the pantry, the larder, the root cellar. You guard every crumb, every grain, and when something spoils, when rats get in, when mold creeps across the bread, it is your responsibility, not your fault, but your burden. You carry it with the same quiet strength that you carry everything, because if you don't, who will? The role of women in the kitchen, the hearth is your kingdom. No man would admit it, no law would name it, but it is true. Here you rule. You know every ember, every hot stone, every pot and ladle. You can judge the temperature of a fire by the smell of the smoke. You know exactly how long it takes for barley to soften. You can turn goat milk into cheese without measuring a thing. You cook for the living, for the dead, for the newborn and the dying. You feed babies from your breast and elders with your hands. You feed without thanks. You feed without rest. You are the reason anyone eats at all. And though no one may notice, you do. You notice, and sometimes in the quiet moments, when the pot is bubbling, and the children are outside, and the room is filled with the warm smell of onions and thyme, you allow yourself a smile, because this too is power, because this too is love. Noble women kitchens and the divide. You've heard that in castles the women do not cook, that noble women wear gloves, and eat white bread, soft as clouds, that their kitchens are run by male cooks and staff who scurry like ants. You've heard that their tables are laden with meats you've never tasted, sauces you've never imagined, pastries shaped like flowers, and pies filled with spices from faraway lands. And maybe it's true, but you don't envy them, because they don't know the smell of bread rising on a wooden board. They don't know the joy of plucking berries with your bare hands. They've never felt the ache of hunger followed by the relief of warmth. They live in a world of velvet and vinegar,
You live in a world of ash and sweetness, and you prefer yours, because it is yours, because it is yours, because it is real, because it is hard, but beautiful, and still. You feed, you ladle the pottage into bowls now. The children gather, their cheeks red from play, their eyes wide with hunger. You blow gently on a spoonful, cooling it before offering it to the youngest. You smile as they eat, and maybe you eat too. Maybe today there is enough. Maybe today there is more than enough. Maybe today you get a full bowl. You sit, you eat, you breathe, you taste the leeks, the onion, the salt, and for a moment the world feels whole. You have done what you were born to do. You have fed them. You have survived them. You have survived them.
The air is different outside. It always is. The cottage is heavy with the scent of wood smoke, wool, and stew. But here, as you step beyond the threshold into the open, the world unfolds in 1,000 quiet sounds and living smells. Damp earth, distant birds, the faint musk of animals, the morning dew. The land breathes under your feet. It is wet, cool, uneven, and it matters more than anything. You pause for a moment, just outside your home. You're already dressed in layers. Your heavy woolen kirtle pulled tight, apron tied at the waist, shawl slung over your shoulders. In one hand, a basket, in the other, a sickle. Your tools are simple, your hands not so. They've earned their calluses. They've pulled at weeds, lifted stones, turned earth, carried water. Today will be no different. You begin your walk. The field is not far. None of the fields are. The village lives close to the land that feeds it, that bleeds with it, that breaks you, if you aren't careful. The fields stretch just beyond the tree line. Small plots broken up by narrow paths and stone walls stacked without mortar. Land is shared, rented, owed. The strips of field are often long and thin, easy to walk, harder to protect. This field, this one is yours. Sort of. Your husband owes labor to the Lord. Some of this land is part of that duty, but some is for you, your family, your own breath and bread. You don't own it, but you live from it. You kneel in the furrow, feel the soil. It's spring, so the planting season is in full force. Your body moves without thinking, because this is what it means to be alive here. Spring, the season of hope and back-breaking beginnings. You dig with a short wooden hoe, chipping away at earth that clings to your tool like memory. The ground is soft from recent rains. Your skirt gathers mud along the hem. You barely notice anymore. Around you, other women work their own plots. Children dart between rows. A few men haul sacks of seed or guide oxen behind a plow. But you don't wait for the men. You're already bending, already sowing, already planting. Barley, rye, beans. You drop the seeds by hand, precisely, evenly, carefully. Then you cover them with a layer of soil and pat it down gently. The rhythm is soothing. There is a song some women hum while they do this. An old melody that you don't remember learning, only that you've always known it. The song speaks of sun and rain, of roots reaching deep, of hope, because that's what spring is. Hope. After the lean months of winter, the hunger and the frost, spring is the season where dreams are placed into the ground with trembling hands and whispered prayers. You do not control the weather. You do not control the soil. You only do what you can and trust the rest to time. By noon, your back aches. Your legs burn from crouching. Your arms are streaked with mud. The wind picks up, carrying bits of pollen and dust. You press on, because if you don't, no one eats, and the land doesn't care how tired you are. The tools of your labor, heavy, simple, unforgiving. There are no machines here. No engines. No motors. No steel. Your tools are few. A wooden hoe, a sickle with a curved blade, a mattock for deeper digging, a woven basket slung across your shoulder. Your hands are your most valuable tools. You guard them as best you can, wrap them in cloth when the weather is cold, rub them with goose fat when the skin splits, bite down on the pain when a fingernail turns black from being caught in a latch or hammered by accident. You carry tools in a small sack. It's made of flax you spun yourself, dyed with walnut husk. You tied it to your belt this morning, with a loop of leather, Inside a piece of bread wrapped in cloth, a handful of dried peas, a bone needle, a bit of string, and a waxed scrap of linen to wrap your fingers in. Should a blister form, you carry what you need, because out here no one brings you what you forgot. Summer, the long labor of maintenance. By midsummer your fields are alive. Rows of green push through brown earth. The barley is tall, the rye sways in the wind, but the work is far from over. Now you must protect. Weeds threaten. You spend hours pulling them, hunched over rows of vegetables, your fingers black with soil. Thistles prick your palms. Wild mustard tangles around the beans. Pests come. Worms, beetles, birds. You hang scraps of cloth to scare the crows. You squash bugs between your fingers. You do what you can. The sun beats down. There is no shade in the field. You wear a wide linen head wrap to keep the sun off your face. It's soaked through with sweat by midday. Your skin darkens. Your shoulders ache. You've developed a limp from favoring your left hip. You keep going. There are no days off. Rain comes and floods the edges of the field. You dig small trenches to carry the water away. No one helps. You tie your skirt up to your knees and wade in barefoot, pulling debris from the crops, brushing leeches from your legs. You come home soaked to your bones. You rest for 1 hour. Then you start again. The sound of labor. It is not quiet out here. Shh. There's the wind, the call of distant birds, the rustle of crops, but most of all there's work. The sound of hoes breaking dirt, of blades slicing stalks, of breath deep, steady, strained, of the creak of leather belts and the squeak of hand carts, of cloth rubbing on skin, and the voices, women singing to themselves, mothers scolding children, elders telling stories, the occasional laugh, the arguments over boundaries, whose strip ends where, who let their goat into whose cabbage. It is noisy, but it is a noise you understand. It is the sound of survival. Autumn, the harvest and the haze of exhaustion. The harvest comes quickly. You barely have time to prepare. The village begins to change. People rise earlier.
Sleep less.
The air smells different, richer, golden, with the crisp edge of coming frost. You take your sickle into the field, and you begin.
Cut, gather, bind.
Over and over and over. You slice the barley at the base, gather it into sheaves, tie it with twine, stack it to dry. You move like a machine. Your hands bleed. Your arms tremble. You are covered in scratches, in dust, in sweat. You work alongside others, women, children, elders. Everyone helps. Everyone must. You fill cart after cart. You carry bundles on your back. You trip, fall, rise again. You work until the sun disappears and the moon rises. Then you do it again the next day, and the next. Because if the harvest is lost, the winter will kill. Threshing, winnowing, storing after the stalks are gathered. They must be processed. You carry them to the barn, lay them out on the hard floor. Then the flails come out. The flail is simple. 2 sticks connected by a leather hinge. You grip one stick and swing the other down onto the grain, beating the heads until the seeds fall loose. You do this for hours. The grain is then winnowed, poured from baskets in the wind, so that the chaff blows away and the seed falls. You work with rhythm, precision,
Care.
because every seed matters. You store the grain in sacks,
Clay pots.
barrels sealed with pitch,
Clay pots.
barrels sealed with pitch. You say a prayer over it. You guard it, because it is your life. Winter, the quiet desperation of stillness. When the frost comes, everything slows, but your work does not end. You chop wood, spin wool,
Into.
peish snow from paths, brew ale,
Far.
fall water, cook, wash.
Don't go to the field.
But the field monty never leaves your mind, because it waits. Beneath the snow, beneath the ice, it sleeps, but you remember every seed you planted, every weed you pulled, every blister you earned.
Don't ply.
To pray the stores will last. You pray the thaw comes early. You pray the rats stay away. The pain and pride of labor. Your body is shaped by the land. Your back is curved from bending. Your fingers are twisted from clutching.
Your feet are thick with callus. Your knees ache in the cold.
Your hips are wider from childbirth. Your shoulders stronger from lifting. It is simply what is. You stretch it out in the morning. Rub your joints at night. You tie cloth around your wrists. Soak your feet in warm water with mint. And yet deep down you feel something like pride. Not because you are strong, but because you endure. Because you do not stop. Because every day you rise. Walk into the field and offer your body to the soil. And the soil gives back just enough. The fear of weather lords and fate. You fear the sky.
Too much rain.
Too little. A late frost. A hailstorm. Locusts. Fire. Rot. You fear the steward. The reeve, the tax collector. That your husband will be called to war. That the land will be taken. You fear that this season will be the one where everything goes wrong. But you do not stop. Because the land does not care about your fear. Only your labor. The land owns you, you don't own your land. You talk to it, curse it, bless it. Demanding, indifferent, but it is also the only place where anything grows. So you give it your sweat, your blood, your years. And sometimes when the crop is good, the bread is thick, and the children laugh, it gives something back. The last hour of the day, you return home at dusk. Your arms are full of kindling, of greens, of whatever the day has allowed. You are covered in dust. Your hands are cracked. Your legs tremble. But you made it. You cross the threshold into warmth, into the soft chaos of children and stew and candlelight. And as you untie your apron and hang your shawl on the peg, you look back once more toward the fields. They are dark now, sleeping. Just like they did yesterday, just like they will tomorrow. And so will you, because in this world, you do not get to rest. You only get to survive. The house is quieter now. Not silent, no, never truly silent. There's always something, wind creeping in through the cracks in the wooden frame, the soft shuffle of feet on straw, the creak of a bench as someone shifts their weight in sleep. But compared to the noise of the fields, the braying of animals, the shouts of children, the clang of metal or crack of firewood, this is peace. This is the slow hush that follows a long day. You are sitting on the edge of your bed, not to rest. Rest is still far off, but to think, to breathe, to catch your breath before the next task finds you. You rub your hands together slowly, palms dry and tight from a day spent gripping baskets, kneading dough, brushing ash from the hearth. The skin at the base of your thumbs is cracked. You press the pads of your fingers against each other, finding the familiar sting. Another crack. You'll bind it later, if you remember. Behind you the children are asleep. Not all of them. There's always one who whispers too long, who shifts and grumbles and asks for water or a story, or their blanket tucked a little tighter. But most have surrendered to the night, curled together under wool and linen, noses peeking out, knees tucked into bellies. You glance at them now and then, without really thinking, just to be sure they're still breathing, just to be sure they're still warm. There's a certain kind of love in watching your children sleep. Not the kind sung about by troubadours or painted into holy icons, but a quiet, enduring love. The kind you carry in your spine, in your knuckles, in the soft ache of your ribs after lifting one child too many. The kind that tastes like boiled barley, and smoke, and the salty edge of sweat. It is not poetic, but it is real, and it is yours. Your eldest lies nearest the fire. She is almost a woman now, 12 perhaps, maybe 13. She braids her own hair now, and this week, she asked if she could help stir the soap pot, instead of just watching. You said yes, though the lie burns make you nervous, but she must learn. One day she'll have a household of her own, and better to teach her now than let the world teach her later. The world is not gentle, it does not wait for readiness. She has a strong will, that girl, just like you once did, before the weight of things made you quieter, before marriage, before children, before the slow erosion of the self that begins the moment you are given to a man. You do not regret it. Not exactly. You married young, not the youngest in the village. There was that girl, 11 and newly bled, wed to a man twice her age, but younger than most today might consider fair. You were perhaps 14, maybe 15. The details blur now. Time has worn the sharpness from the memory, leaving only the shape of it. You remember the day clearly though, the way your mother braided your hair with ribbon, the way your father checked the weather and the pig pen, more often than your face, the way your hands trembled when you touched the cloth of your dress, not because it was beautiful, but because it was new, and you weren't sure if it was really meant for you. You remember the way he looked at you, the man who would be your husband, not cruelly, not kindly, either, just measured, as though he were weighing the usefulness of a tool. Your father had offered you with the promise of a modest dowry, a small plot of land, a goat, some hens and a blanket stitched by your grandmother's hands. It was a good match, practical, sensible. There was no romance, but there was no protest, either. That's how it is. You did not choose, you were chosen, and now so many years later, you find yourself watching your own daughter from the same seat your mother once sat in, wondering who will take her, and whether she'll be treated kindly, or at least fairly, whether her hands will bleed as yours do, whether her smile will last beyond her first child. Marriage is not love, not here, not for women like you. It is duty. It is the shaping of two households into one. It is survival through union. It is mouths to feed, and hands to help, and fields to tend, and names to carry forward. You did not expect tenderness. You learned not to need it. Still there were moments. You remember the first time your husband brought back a ribbon from market. It was red, bright red, garish, really. He handed it to you without ceremony, without looking you in the eye. You said thank you, and tucked it into your apron. You wore it 2 Sundays later. He didn't say anything, but you saw him glance at it. You remember the winter he caught a fever, and you sat by his side for 3 nights straight, boiling herbs, changing cloths, pressing cool hands against his burning skin. You whispered prayers to saints you didn't even believe in, just in case someone was listening. You remember the day he stood in front of you, when a drunken neighbor made a crude joke, just stood there, a hand on your arm, not letting the other man get closer. You do not love him the way bards sing of, but you know him, and sometimes, that is enough. Sometimes when the children are asleep, and the fire is low, he speaks to you like an equal, tells you what the steward said at the last gathering, asks what you think of planting flax instead of barley next year. You answer plainly. He listens. You both sit in silence after. There is comfort in that silence. There is understanding. It isn't passion, but it's something steadier. Your second youngest stirs. He's sweating, too close to the fire. You rise slowly, knees protesting, and gently lift him from the blanket pile. He murmurs something half-dreamed. You hush him, shift him to a cooler spot, adjust the blanket, kiss his forehead, kiss his forehead. You think of all the things you've done for your children, held their heads while they vomited, dried their tears when their fingers were burned on the pot, taught them to tie knots, to patch socks, to name plants that heal and those that poison, sang to them through fevers, fed them from your own bowl when food ran low, covered them with your own body when storms shattered the roof. You wonder if they'll remember any of it. You wonder if they'll know the weight you carry for them. The weight of being everything: mother, cook, seamstress,
healer,
disciplinarian, storyteller, teacher, shield, ghost, and wife, and daughter, and servant of the land. Sometimes you wonder where the line is between who you are and what you do. Sometimes you wonder if they're the same thing now. You sit back down. The room has darkened. A few coals still glow in the hearth, faintly orange. You think of tomorrow. What must be done? Bread must be made, the goat milked, the fence mended, the washing started. You'll walk to the field in the afternoon, check for pests, pick nettles for stew, collect eggs. You'll mend the torn sleeve on your husband's tunic, replait your daughter's hair, scrub the stains from the baby's shift, soak beans for supper. You will do all of it, again and again, and again, because that is your place.
because that is what was given to you, because that is what keeps the world from falling apart. You think of your own mother, her crooked spine, her hands always red, her voice steady. She rarely smiled, but when she did, it was as though the world paused for a moment. You wonder if you ever made her smile. You wonder if she saw herself in you. You think of her quiet prayers, the way she whispered to herself at night, long after the rest of the house had gone to sleep. You think of how she died, not in drama or terror, but simply stopped. One day she did not rise. The morning came, and she did not follow. You prepared her body. You washed her hair one last time. You stitched the linen she was buried in. You think of that often. You wonder who will prepare you. Not morbidly, not with fear.
Just wonder.
It's part of it. The cycle, the handing down of life and labor. You gave life to these children. One day they will give it to their own, and so on, and so on. Your husband stirs in his sleep, not fully awake, just a shift, a breath, a groan. You glance at him. His face is lined now, his hands cracked, his hair thin. You remember when he could carry a full bale of hay on one shoulder, when he could run after the children and scoop them into the air. He still does, sometimes, but more slowly, more carefully. He will slow further. So will you. One day the work will pass to others. But for now,
You are here.
still breathing, still watching, still holding everything together with your hands, your heart, and the invisible thread of duty. It is not easy, but it is life, and it is yours. And as you lay down at last, stretching your tired body beside the warm hum of sleeping children, the quiet breath of your husband, the soft fading glow of the hearth, you know that you have done what must be done. You have loved,
You have served. You have endured. You have lived another day.
and tomorrow you will rise again.
The ocean is dark tonight, darker than usual. The moon is veiled by clouds, and the water seems endless in its blackness, like ink poured over glass. The only light comes from the lanterns swinging softly above, casting long, slow shadows across the deck. You can't sleep, not because you're not tired, but because something feels wrong. You're not alone in that feeling. The men are restless. They move differently, slower, more careful. Whispers pass between them like wind through rigging. No laughter, no songs. Even the dice players have tucked their games away. And somewhere on the foredeck, an old sailor mutters under his breath, fingers tracing the same knot in his belt again and again like a prayer. This is a ship full of men who believe in things. Not gods, necessarily, not saints or sermons, but signs, omens, portents, little rules passed down through centuries of salt water and fear. Whistling on deck, forbidden, it's said to summon the wind, angry wind. Some say it tempts the devil to blow you overboard. Others believe it draws spirits from the sea, those who drowned and are looking for someone to take their place, bringing bananas on board. Bad luck. No one knows why, but everyone agrees. If someone sneaks one into their pack, and the ship suffers a snapped mast or a sudden storm, that man may find himself thrown overboard without trial. Women on board, never. Not because pirates hated women, but because it was believed that the sea itself was jealous of a woman's presence, that her beauty would offend the waves, that she would curse the voyage with endless storms. If a woman was found stowed away, even in innocence, the articles might call for marooning, or worse, even animals had meaning. A black cat was lucky, so long as it left the ship and came back. A bird that circled the mast was a sign of death. Sharks that followed the ship were messengers from the underworld, and dolphins, well, dolphins were good luck, but if one was caught in a net or wounded, the men would weep openly. Better to sink the ship than anger a dolphin. Then there are the ghosts. Yes, they believe in ghosts. Not the white sheet kind, but the quiet kind. The kind that creak the boards when no one is walking. The kind that whisper your name from beneath the hold when you're alone. The kind that knock 3 times behind your hammock, and then never speak again. You've heard tales half whispered over bowls of stew and grog. A man who spoke to his dead brother in the fog. Another who vanished on a cloudless night, leaving only his boots. One sailor, trembling, swore he'd seen a hand rise from the water and grip the anchor chain. No one laughed. The ship is filled with talismans, bits of bone, teeth, coins with holes in them, little pouches of herbs tied with string. A few men wear carved trinkets around their necks, tiny figures meant to ward off sea curses. You don't ask what they are, you just nod, solemnly, You've taken to tapping the mast twice before bed. You don't know why. You just do. Just in case. Because out here on the edge of the known world, surrounded by nothing but dark water and dark thoughts, belief is not a luxury, it's a lifeline. If you don't have something to believe in, the sea might take you. And tonight, as the wind shifts and the lantern flickers, you pull your blanket tighter and whisper something, anything, into the darkness. Just in case.
You wake to shouting, not the usual shouting.
Not the angry barking of the quartermaster or the groan of a man who's rolled out of his hammock. This is excited, urgent, hopeful. You stumble onto the deck, rubbing your eyes, and there it is, land. A green smear on the horizon, real, solid, alive. After months at sea, after storms, sores, biscuits and boredom, it looks like a miracle. The crew is buzzing, men point and cheer, some laugh, a few cry. One man drops to his knees and kisses the floor of the deck. You do none of those things, you just stare. The island grows larger by the hour. Trees, hills, smoke from a fire. You smell it before you reach it. Dirt, rich, loamy earth, wet leaves, cooked meat, not salted or dried, but roasted, fresh. Your stomach growls so loudly someone mistakes it for thunder. You dock by midday. The anchor drops with a final heavy clunk, a sound like permission, and then you step off the ship and feel it, the world. The ground beneath your boots is still, no sway, no tilt, just stillness. It makes you dizzy. The others feel it too. Some stagger like drunks, others drop to all fours, hands buried in sand, eyes closed. One man just lies flat, face in the grass, whispering something that might be a thank you to the dirt. You walk, slowly. Every step is strange. The path underfoot doesn't creak. There's no rigging above your head, no wind howling past your ears, just the rustle of leaves and the soft hum of insects. Your ears ring from the silence. In town, people stare. You know what they see. Ragged clothes, burned skin, wild beards. You look like something washed ashore from another time, and in a way you have. You try fruit, real fruit, a mango, maybe, or a plum. It explodes in your mouth, sweet and cold and sharp. You tear into it like an animal. Juice runs down your chin, and you don't care. You eat until your stomach hurts. You drink something that's not grog, and it doesn't burn. You sit in a chair that doesn't move. You lie on a bed that doesn't swing. You listen to the wind, and it doesn't scream. For a moment, you remember who you were, before the sea, before the ship, before the endless days of salt and suffering. You are not a pirate here, not a sailor, not a ghost. You are just a man with sore feet and a full belly, staring at the horizon, and wondering, will you go back? Of course you will. You always do, because no matter how much the land soothes you, the sea still calls. It always does. There is nothing quite like stepping onto land after months at sea. The world doesn't sway. The buildings don't groan in the wind. The ground feels steady, almost insultingly so, like it's trying to prove a point. But you forgive it. You're just happy to stand on something that doesn't slosh underneath your boots. The port town smells different than the ship. It's not cleaner, just different. Less of salt and sweat, more of wood smoke, rotting fruit, cheap perfume, and overcooked meat. There are chickens wandering the muddy streets. Half-dressed children dart between carts and barrels. There's a donkey somewhere, braying in a tone that sounds suspiciously like a cry for help. But the taverns, oh the taverns are glorious. You and your crewmates stumble into the first one you see. A crooked wooden building with peeling paint, a crooked door, and the wonderful, unmistakable sound of mugs clinking and laughter erupting over someone falling off a stool. Inside, it's chaos. Smoke hangs thick in the air. The floor is sticky. The ale is warm. The food is questionable. And you've never been happier. The captain grants each man a handful of coins from the last haul, measured carefully, handed with a grunt and a warning. You barely hear the warning. You're already eyeing the nearest tankard. Shore leave is not about rest. It's about forgetting. Forget the ship. Forget the bruises, the lice, the biscuits with legs. Forget the storms and the hangings, and the quiet, creaking dread of the open ocean. You drink, and then you drink more. Someone buys you stew. It's hot, and spicy, and you're not sure what the meat is. You don't care. You eat it like a man just released from prison, which in a sense you are. Around you, pirates shout stories no one believes. One claims to have sailed through a hurricane while asleep. Another swears he once swallowed a ring to hide it from a Spanish soldier, and didn't see it again. until 3 months later in Barbados. No one questions how or why. The night blurs. You find yourself dancing with someone, possibly a woman, possibly not. You buy a hat from a man selling them out of a crate. It's 3 sizes too small and smells like wet bread. You wear it proudly. Eventually the brothels beckon. They always do. Some pirates vanish for hours, others for days. Some never come back. The ones who do often wear mysterious scratches and faraway smiles. One fellow returns with a bandaged ear and a pet chicken. He refuses to explain either. You spend your coin faster than you thought possible. A drink here, a dice game there, a round of roasted meat, a bottle of something with a skull on the label. Suddenly, you're broke. Again. Somehow, you have a new scar, a black eye, and no shoes. And yet, you feel whole again, almost human. You wake to coughing. Not your own, not tonight, but close. The wet, rasping sound of a child's lungs struggling in the dark. You hear it before you open your eyes. You know which child it is, without even looking. You know their coughs, like other women know lullabies, by pitch, by rhythm, by the way your stomach tightens in response. This one is deeper, lower. It's been building for days. You sit up slowly, wrapped in layers, listening. The room is cold. The fire has nearly gone out. The air tastes of damp straw and ash. The walls are breathing with the night, wood swelling and contracting softly with every change in temperature. The child coughs again. You cross the room and kneel beside the bundle of wool and linen, where he sleeps, or tries to. His forehead is damp, hot. His breaths come in short pulls. He startles when you touch his chest. You whisper to him, gently. He doesn't answer, but he quiets. You press a cool cloth to his skin and pray the fever doesn't rise further. You've seen it rise. You've watched it consume. You know too well what can happen. You know what it is to sit beside a small body and count the seconds between breaths, to watch eyes go glassy, to hold a hand that no longer grips back, to press your ear to a ribcage and wonder if it still moves, to pretend you're only resting your head, so the other children don't panic. Not again, you whisper. Not this one. You rise, careful not to disturb the others. You gather dried herbs from the small pouch above the hearth. Yarrow, mint and thyme. You grind them with a stone, add water, and stir over the fire. The embers catch slowly, then begin to glow. You sit in the warmth and wait. The world is quiet, except for the sound of your child trying to breathe. There is no doctor. There is no medicine. There is only you, and what you remember, what your mother taught you, what the old women murmured behind closed doors. You make a poultice from onions and honey, and smear it onto cloth, pressing it to his chest. You spoon a little of the herb brew into his mouth. He swallows reflexively. That's good. That's something. You sit by his side. You don't sleep. There's no room for sleep when sickness comes. Your body may ache. Your mind may wander. But your ears stay alert. Your fingers stay close. You count every cough, every wheeze. You press the cloth to his brow. You whisper to the saints. You hum songs you barely remember. Time slows. Hours pass. Or maybe they don't. There is no time here, only waiting. Eventually the cough softens. He stirs, shifts, breathes more deeply. You exhale, slowly, carefully. You do not relax. Not yet. You've learned not to hope too soon. Morning comes with a dull light pushing through the cracks in the shutters. The world outside is still grey, but inside you hear a slower breath, the kind that comes with sleep. You let your head fall against the wall and close your eyes for just a moment. You are so tired. You've lost count of how many nights you've sat like this, holding the sickness at bay, with nothing but cloth and prayer. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. You remember the last time it didn't. A neighbor's child. Your goddaughter. Fever came quick, took her before sunset. You helped wash the body, held the mother while she screamed, dug your fingers into your apron so hard, your nails tore holes in it. You stitched those holes the next day, because life keeps going, even when you don't want it to. Sickness doesn't care if you're strong, or good, or loved. It comes anyway, and you fight it however you can. With sage and rosemary, with broth and garlic, with poultices, oils and bitter teas. You burn dried lavender to clear the air. You rub wax on the doorposts. You draw crosses on the shutters. You keep your children from the neighbors when rumor spreads of coughs, of sores, of swollen necks or skin gone black. And when it's bad, when the sickness is in the air, you stay inside. You light candles. You do not speak. You wash your hands with vinegar and ash. You leave herbs by the window, and you wait. You've seen what happens when it spreads. You remember the plague years. You were a child, but you remember the smell, the bells, the carts, the way people stopped looking one another in the eye. You remember the priest coughing blood into his sleeve. You remember your cousin's house going silent. You remember how your mother made you eat garlic every morning for months, how she bathed your feet in wine when you had a fever, how she cried quietly when she thought you were sleeping. You remember surviving, but just barely, so when the cough comes now, years later, you do not panic. You do not scream. You gather the herbs. You stoke the fire. You stay up through the night. You do what you always do, because you are a mother, because you are a healer, because no one else will do it. You tend to your family's wounds, burns from the hearth, blisters from shoes, splinters from wood. You pull thorns from your husband's palms. You crush flax seeds into paste for swelling. You mix honey with crushed herbs for cuts that look angry. You whisper charms without believing in them. You pray without expecting answers. You do it anyway, because sometimes it helps. You dry the fever with cloth soaked in wine. You cool the boils with water drawn from the well before sunrise. You press your lips to foreheads and can tell a change of half a degree. You are not trained, you are not licensed, but you are trusted. Even the village comes to you now, an old man with a bad tooth, a girl with a swollen foot, a newborn who won't nurse. You do what you can. You crush the mint. You boil the nettle. You soothe with voice and touch. You pretend to be brave, because when they come to you, especially the children, they do not need facts. They need comfort. They need hope. They need you to believe. So you do. Even when you don't, you believe, because belief is a kind of medicine too, and sometimes it's the only one you have. You think of the women who came before you. Your mother, her mother, the healer with the crooked back who showed you how to wrap a wound with wool soaked in vinegar. They did not write books, they did not wear robes, but they carried life in their hands, and they passed it to you, one poultice at a time. You look at your child now. He sleeps, still warm, still flushed, but peaceful. The worst may be over, or not. You will know in time, but for now you breathe, and you rest your forehead against his, and you close your eyes. Just for a moment, because you'll be needed again, very soon, again. You rise before the sun, not for bread, not for fire, not for the field. You rise because it is Sunday, because it is the Lord's Day, because it is the one morning each week, when your hands pause and your heart lifts. The house is still cold, your feet still ache, the children still sleep. But the rhythm of the day is different. You wash with water drawn last night, and left in a basin by the hearth. You do not scrub, just wipe, enough to feel clean, enough to prepare. You comb your hair slowly, then cover it with a clean linen veil, tying it tight beneath your chin. You choose your plainest, cleanest kirtle, not because it is fine, nothing you own is fine, but because it is simple, unpatched, pressed flat beneath the weight of a pot the night before. You want to appear proper, humble, modest, not for show, for God. You wake the children gently, brushing sleep from their eyes with your fingertips, murmuring soft encouragements as you dress them. The baby is swaddled. The older ones grumble and yawn, but they know the rhythm too. The youngest boy insists on bringing a smooth stone he found near the well. You let him. Everyone needs something to hold. Your husband walks ahead, carrying your eldest on his shoulders. You walk behind, hand in hand with your daughter, the baby warm against your chest. The road is muddy. The sky is still dark. The village gathers slowly. A handful of torches flicker at the church door. Stone walls loom taller in the grey morning than they seem during the day. The bell rings once, then again, then a third time, low and heavy, like a heartbeat. You lower your eyes as you step through the door. Inside it is cold, but sacred. The floor is packed earth. The ceiling beams stretch high overhead. The altar glows with the faint orange light of 2 candles, wax dribbling like tears. A wooden cross hangs above, and your eyes go to it without being told. You find your place. Women on one side, men on the other. Children fidget between knees. The priest appears, wrapped in cloth finer than anything you've ever worn. He speaks Latin, but you don't need the words. You know the rhythm, the call and answer. Your mouth forms the shapes anyway. You cross yourself at the right times, bow your head, kneel, rise, kneel again. Your knees ache, you kneel anyway, not because you understand it all, but because it's what you've always done, and because sometimes in the dark when no one else is listening, you whisper your own prayers into the space between your hands, and feel them settle there like warmth. You pray for your child's cough to pass. You pray for your husband's aching back. You pray for the rat that got into the grain bin to leave. You pray for forgiveness for shouting at your daughter yesterday. You pray that next season will be better. You pray that you're still worthy of love. You do not ask for much, but you pray anyway. The mass ends, the villagers shuffle out slowly, the cold morning light now beginning to brighten the path. The children run ahead, shoes kicking up wet earth. You follow more slowly. Your feet are cold, but your heart feels lighter. It always does. There is something in the ritual, something in the sameness, something in the breath you hold between amen and the walk home. You go back to work. The fire is built again. The bread is baked. The chickens are fed. Life resumes, but you hold a sliver of peace with you, even as you scrub the floor, even as you fold the washing, even as your child weeps because he scraped his knee, and won't be consoled. That peace lingers, for a while, not always, not forever, but enough to help you keep going. You do not only pray in church, you pray as you bend over the washtub, as you knead the dough, as you pull weeds from the garden. You pray without words, sometimes with humming, sometimes with the motion of your hands, sometimes with the motion of your hands, sometimes with silence. When your neighbor's child is sick, you light a candle and press your forehead to the cold stone wall of the church. When the harvest is good, you bring your best loaf to the altar and whisper thanks under your breath. When you feel your stomach cramp in a way that makes you fear you might be pregnant again, you pray, though you don't know if it's a prayer for a child or for it not to be. Both feel the same sometimes. You do not have a Bible, you cannot read, but you know the stories. They were sung to you as a child, passed down in scraps of angels and saints and mothers and miracles. You know of the Virgin Mary, who labored in a stable. You know of Martha, who served without complaint. You know of Saint Margaret, who survived being swallowed by a dragon. You know of Saint Apollonia, who had her teeth torn out, and still smiled. These women live in your mind like friends. You imagine them beside you, kneeling in the dirt. Their hands look like yours. Their clothes smell of ash. You imagine they would understand. Sometimes you light a candle for a saint, not because you believe she hears you, but because doing so reminds you that you are not alone. The church marks your days. Sunday Mass, Monday washing, Wednesday market, Friday fast, saint days, feast days, days of mourning, days of light. Time is not marked by hours here, but by bells, by rituals, by what the church tells you. You don't remember exactly when Lent begins, but you know how it feels. The sudden hush, the sharpness of hunger, the weight of guilt pressing down in your stomach, the thin soup and missing meat. You know when Easter comes, not because of color or music, but because everyone lifts their head a little higher, because the priest smiles, because the bread is thicker and there is honey on it. You remember last year's procession. The children carried little branches, and someone sang until they lost their voice. The priest swung incense, and the air smelled strange, sweet but heavy. You stood with your hands folded, the baby tied to your chest, and you felt tears on your cheeks, though you weren't sure why. Maybe it was the music, maybe it was the smoke, maybe it was exhaustion, but in that moment you felt something larger than yourself. Not joy exactly, but something like grace. There are other days too, holy days of obligation, feasts of saints you don't fully understand, but you observe them. You wear cleaner clothes, you offer what you can, even if it's just bread shaped into a cross, even if it's just a bit of tallow on the altar, even if it's just staying quiet all day and whispering prayers into your shawl while the baby sleeps. You keep your faith in pieces, little pieces, not grand declarations, not visions, not prophecies, just moments, tiny flickering moments of light. Sometimes you doubt, you wonder why the good suffer, why the young die, why the old grow blind and bent, and still must work. You wonder why your neighbor, who prays more than anyone you know, lost 3 children in 1 year. You wonder why your sister bled and bled and bled and no one could stop it. You wonder what kind of God lets that happen. You do not say these things aloud,
but you think them, and then you light another candle. You kneel again, you whisper into your hands, because even when you doubt, you still believe. Or maybe, even when you don't believe, you still hope, and hope is enough. You remember when the new priest arrived, young, full of words. He spoke with passion, told you that God loved you, that your suffering meant something, that your pain was seen. You did not tell him that you had given birth alone in the cold once, while your husband was away. You did not tell him about the baby who didn't cry. You did not tell him about the time you pulled a tooth out of your own mouth with a string and a rock. But you listened, and you let him believe. You believed everything he said, because maybe you did, just not all at once. You believe in God. But more than that, you believe in getting up the next morning, in feeding your children, in tending the fire, in touching your husband's hand before sleep, in hanging the rosemary above the door, in offering bread to a hungry neighbor, in singing softly to a child who is afraid. Those are your prayers. Those are your rituals. Those are your sacraments. You may not kneel in a cathedral. You may never touch a holy relic. You may never go on pilgrimage to Rome or Santiago or Canterbury, but you walk barefoot to the well and whisper thanks when the water is clear. You touch your fingers to your lips when your child laughs, as if to bless the moment. You draw a cross in the dust when you wipe the table clean. You murmur forgiveness to yourself when the day ends, and you didn't finish everything. You lay your head down and say one more prayer, even if the only words are, please, please. And when the night is still, and the wind howls through the shutters, and the baby stirs, and the fire fades to coals, and the aches return to your legs, and the thoughts press hard against the walls of your heart, you pull the blanket tighter, you press your palms together, and you believe, even if it is only for a moment, even if it is only because you must. Because in a world so cold and unforgiving, faith is the only thing that ever felt warm.
Your hands don't work like they used to. You feel it first in the mornings, before the fire is lit, before the cottage has warmed, the way your fingers hesitate to close fully around the handle of the kettle, the ache in your knuckles as you try to squeeze water from a cloth, the stiffness that hums low in your hips when you rise from the stool, pressing one hand against your thigh for support. You notice these things, quietly, without panic, without complaint. You've grown used to noticing. You sit more slowly now, you rise more carefully, you breathe a little louder when climbing even the low step into the cottage. None of it surprises you. You are not old yet, but you are no longer young. Your body tells you so, softly but insistently, in every joint and limb and line. The years pass more quickly now. You watch them go like geese overhead, suddenly there, suddenly gone, leaving only the trace of a shadow and the echo of wings. The children are grown, most of them. Some are still at home. One is married now, living 2 cottages down, her own apron heavy with the weight of babies. Another left with a caravan to trade wool and never returned. You still think of him. You always will. You still set an extra place sometimes without realizing it. The baby, your last, is nearly 12. He sleeps late now, dreams long. You watch his feet stretch the edge of the bed. It happens like that. One year you're washing their feet in a basin. The next they're tying your apron for you because your fingers hurt in the morning. You are a mother still. You always will be. But it feels different now. The days are slower, the tasks don't change, but the urgency softens. You still knead bread, still scrub pots, still spin wool, but your daughter handles the laundry now. Your niece cuts the firewood. The neighbor girl tends the goat when your knees act up, and you let them. You learn to let them. Not out of laziness, not out of pride, but because you know what it is to carry too much, and because now, finally, you don't have to. At least not always. Sometimes you feel useless, as if you've stepped just to the side of the world's center. You listen to conversations and find yourself forgotten halfway through. You offer advice and see it ignored. You used to be the one everyone turned to, for stitching, for healing, for the words to soothe a frightened child. Now they ask your daughter instead. She does well. You're proud. But still, it aches a little. You don't say anything. You swallow the feeling and go about your work. But inside you wonder if this is what becoming invisible feels like. It's not cruel. It's not meant to hurt. It just happens. The shift. You used to enter a room and be needed. Now you enter and are simply there. You still braid the girl's hair when they let you. Still tell stories while your hands twist the linen. But their questions are fewer now. They know more. or they think they do. You don't argue, you simply braid, and listen, and nod. Sometimes they ask you to tell them how it was. You do, but not everything. Some things live in your body, not in words. The night you bled for too long, the cry you waited for that never came, the winter with no shoes, the guilt that clung to your spine when you thought you'd failed them. You keep those pieces close. You talk instead of saints and harvests and how the moon looked that one spring night before the barn burned. They like those stories. You hold them out like bread, soft, familiar, comforting. Sometimes they bring their children to you, small hands, round cheeks, wet eyes. You hold them, rock them, sing the songs you thought you'd forgotten. Your voice shakes, but they don't care. Children don't need strength. They need presence. They need warmth. They need you. You feel most like yourself when holding a child, not because it makes you young again, but because it reminds you who you've always been. A cradle, a shield, a quiet kind of sanctuary. You never had the words to shape great ideas. You never held a book, never lit a candle in a scriptorium, but you held people, held them through fever, through grief, through hunger. You held them when no one else could. And that in your own mind is a kind of wisdom. No one writes down what women like you know. There are no songs for the way your hands learned the weight of a dying bird. No statues for the women who kept the fire alive through a storm. No stories for the ones who remembered every child's birth, every scar, every lullaby. But you remember, and sometimes you think that might be enough. You no longer bleed each month. It stopped last winter, or perhaps the one before. You didn't mark the moment. But you knew, you felt it, deep in your bones, like a door quietly closing. You didn't mourn it. Not exactly, but you stood by the window that night and watched the wind move through the trees, and you whispered goodbye, just in case something was listening. Your husband is quiet now, slower. The lines on his face are deeper. His hair is white. He no longer fixes the roof without groaning. He still brings you things from market, little things. A spool of dyed thread, a sweetbread when he can spare it. You eat together in silence now more often than not, but it's a good silence, a warm one, a silence that says we survived, a silence built from years of storms and springs and lost lambs and new babies and aching backs and quiet nights. Sometimes he reaches for your hand and doesn't say anything. Sometimes you squeeze it back. Sometimes that's all you need. You look in the mirror sometimes, not the polished one, just the reflection in the bucket, or the curve of a kettle. You see your mother there, and her mother. You see time resting gently on your face. You touch the soft lines with your fingers and say nothing. You have made peace with yourself. Mostly, there are regrets. Of course there are. Words left unsaid, dreams laid aside like worn-out shoes. But you also know you did what you could, and that knowing carries its own quiet weight. You walk slower now, sit longer. You find yourself watching the sky more often. The way the clouds move, the way the sun sets, the way the birds leave and return. You think more about endings, not out of fear, out of curiosity. You wonder what your name will mean when you're gone, to your children, to their children. You wonder if they'll remember how you made pottage with wild mint, how you could tell the weather by the ache in your hands, how you hummed when you were tired, how your shawl always smelled of time. You hope so. You sit by the fire in the evenings now. Let your daughter finish the sewing. Let your son chop the wood. You watch, and you smile. Not because everything is perfect, but because there is peace here, in the cracks between the moments. In the warmth of knowing you are no longer needed every second, but still wanted, still loved, still part of the shape of this house, this land, this story. You are not young, you are not at the center, but you are the foundation. You are the memory that keeps the walls upright. And when the time comes, when your hands can no longer grip the spoon, when your eyes no longer find the thread, when your legs no longer carry you to the garden, you will rest, you will let go, and you will leave behind a world shaped gently by your hands. Not loudly, not grandly, but completely. And perhaps in the soft hush between one breath and the next, someone will whisper your name, and it will be enough. It comes slowly, not as a storm, but as a quieting, a soft unraveling of the threads you have held so tightly for so long. You feel it in the morning, when the ache in your bones no longer fades with movement, when your steps no longer find balance without thought, when you forget the names of plants you've known since you were a child, when the days feel long, and the nights feel longer, and your sleep no longer brings rest, only distance. You feel it in the silence that lives between heartbeats. You do not speak of it. Not at first. There is still bread to knead, wool to card, soup to stir. You still rise with the sun, still whisper prayers, still warm your grandchildren's hands between your own. But you feel it, like a window you forgot was open, like a breath leaving the room. You grow smaller, not just in frame, but in presence. You speak less, listen more. You stop trying to finish the sentences of others. You let the stories run their course. You watch the fire more, the way the coals shift, the way the light curls over the wood. You find yourself remembering, not out of longing, just because memory becomes the place you visit most often. You think of your mother's voice, your sister's laughter, the songs your eldest child used to hum before she knew the words. You think of the face of your first love, the one you never told anyone about, the way he smiled at the village well, the way he disappeared one autumn and was never seen again. You think of the child you held only once, of the winter you almost didn't survive, of the time you saw the stars reflected in still water and believed, just for a moment, that you were part of something vast. You smile more now, quietly, without reason. You hum to yourself without knowing it. You fold things more carefully, shawls, napkins, sheets, as if they might be your final gift to the world. One morning, you do not rise, not because you cannot, but because you do not wish to. You are not in pain, not sharply, just tired in a way that feels different. You stay beneath the blankets. You hear your daughter's voice, the kettle boiling, the children laughing, all of it just on the other side of the wall, close enough to touch, but distant now, as though through water. You close your eyes, and open them again to find your daughter sitting beside you. She smiles with eyes that understand. She presses a cloth to your head, feeds you broth with a wooden spoon. You swallow once, nod. She stays. That night, the priest visits. He sits beside you, says prayers you barely hear, anoints your forehead. His hands are dry, warm. You smell oil and beeswax and a faint trace of incense. He asks if you wish to confess. You do, but not the old way, not in words. You confess by smiling, by reaching for your daughter's hand, by whispering thank you to the rafters, by blinking slowly, as you feel each part of your body begin to rest. You confess by letting go. The next morning, the world is quieter, the fire burns low, the wind does not knock on the shutters. Your grandchildren are kept outside, distracted with chores. Your daughter prepares the linen. She knows what to do. You taught her. She washes you gently, with warm water and rosemary. She combs your hair. She dresses you in your best kirtle. She wraps your hands around the cross you kept beside your bed. She presses her forehead to your chest and weeps. The neighbors come. They speak softly. They bring bread, candles, a small pot of honey. They sit beside your body. They pray. They sing. The children peek in through the door. They are not afraid. You look peaceful, like someone who finally finished their story. You are laid out on the table in the center of the room. Candles burn at your head and feet. The women of the village take turns watching over you through the night. They speak of you, of the bread you used to make, of the way your shawls never unraveled, of the time you stayed up all night with their sick child. They speak of your hands, your quiet voice, the way you hummed even when your feet hurt. You are carried the next day to the churchyard, wrapped in linen, cradled on a simple board. The bell rings, once, then again, then once more. You are placed into the ground beside your husband. The priest speaks. Earth is scattered, ash to ash, dust to dust. Your daughter places a stone on your grave. It is smooth, worn from years of resting beside the hearth. Your grandchildren ask if you are in heaven. She tells them yes. She tells them you are with the saints, that you are baking bread again, somewhere warm, somewhere kind. They believe her. She half believes it too, because how else can one live? The seasons turn. Your garden grows wild, then settles, then is tilled again by new hands. Your cottage changes. The floor is swept by someone else. The fire is stoked by someone else. Your chair is used to dry wool. Your spindle is passed to a granddaughter. Your recipe for pottage is written, for the first time in the margins of a prayer book. Your name is whispered, then less often, then only when someone finds the stone. But you are not gone. You are in the curve of your daughter's smile, in the way your grandson closes his eyes, when he hears music, in the way the bread rises, in the smell of rosemary, in the hush that falls when prayers are said. You are the story told at night, when someone asks what it means to be strong. You are the warmth remembered in the coldest month. You are not written in books, but you are written in bodies, in habits, in love. You lived without fanfare, without glory, but fully, and when your last breath came, it was not an end, only a rest, only the quiet folding of hands that had held the world over and over again. You are gone, but you are not lost. Not really. You are still here, in every softened footstep, in every whispered lullaby, in every bowl of soup offered with a trembling smile. You were a woman, and that was enough. That was everything. It begins again, not with fanfare, not with trumpets or banners or the sound of your name etched in glass. It begins the way it always does, with a cry, high and small and sudden, a new voice entering a world already full of noise and silence. A child is born, a daughter, somewhere not far from where you once lived, in a house not unlike your own. The midwife wraps her in cloth, lays her in her mother's arms. The mother weeps softly, as they always do, not from fear, not entirely from joy, but from the immense crushing weight of what has just passed between the body and the world. The child blinks at the rafters, her fist clenches, a thread begins. The days return to their rhythm, morning fires, bread rising, chickens calling for feed, the weight of water in a bucket, the hush of prayers said with closed eyes, the same motions, the same sounds, but different hands. The woman who now stokes the hearth hums a song she doesn't remember learning. Her fingers braid her daughter's hair the same way her mother did. She doesn't think about it. She simply does it. She calls to her son with a voice that rises and falls just like yours did once. Firm but kind, heavy with patience, earned through sleepless nights and muddy floors. She stitches by candlelight, and the thread twists just as it used to in your hands. There is no monument where you once stood, no statue in the village green, no carved stone telling your story. The mark you left is less visible, but no less real. It is in the shape of the dough they knead, the way they wrap the herbs in cloth to dry, the way they lower their heads slightly when they pass the church, even if they don't remember why. It is in the small things, the invisible things, the things that never stop. You are not a memory spoken often, but you are present in every repetition. Every time someone teaches a child to tie a bundle of firewood, to cool a fevered brow, to whisper over a seed before it is buried in the earth, you are there, because you taught someone, who taught someone, who taught someone. That is the real legacy. That is what remains. You are in their voices when they call for their mothers in the dark. You are in their silence when they watch the fire burn low and wonder how much longer the winter will last. You are in their laughter when the bread comes out perfect and warm and shared with someone they love. Nothing was wasted. Not the tears, not the scars, not the days that ended in exhaustion, with nothing to show but survival. Because survival was enough. Because from that survival came everything. You are not forgotten. You are repeated, like the turning of the seasons, like the pattern woven into a tapestry so old no one remembers who began it, but all agree it must be continued. There is a girl now, not yet grown, who hums to herself while she picks nettles by the edge of a forest. She does not know why she hums. She just knows that when she does, the fear feels smaller, the day moves faster, her hands work steadier. That song is yours, though she will never know it. In her mind it simply is. There is an old woman 3 cottages down, who still makes soap the way you did. She doesn't use the new method. She says hers is better, stronger, kinder on the hands. Her daughter rolls her eyes, but still helps stir the pot. The recipe was yours. It was passed in a whisper, a pinch, a rhythm. No one wrote it down. It didn't need writing. It lives in the muscle, in the breath. You are still here. In the silence between the bell tolls, in the way a girl ties her apron, in the lull in conversation when soup is served and everyone takes their first sip. The land you once walked continues to grow. The fields you bled into now bloom with barley. The trees you passed each day still lose their leaves, each fall and blossom again without needing permission. No one asks where you went, because they do not feel that you are gone. You are simply not seen, but you are felt, like warmth on the skin through a closed window, like the way the floorboards creak when no one walks on them, like the prayer said beneath one's breath just before sleep. You are legacy, not loud, not carved, but present. You gave your life in pieces, in meals, in mended sleeves, in comfort. You did not hold the world in your hands, but you held those who did, and that is more, that is enough. One day the girl in the forest will grow old. She will pass on her hum, her hands, her way of holding the world together without anyone noticing. She will rock her grandchild by the fire and whisper stories she half remembers, some of them yours, though she doesn't know it. And that child will grow and forget and repeat. And so it will continue, not because of fate, but because of you. Because you endured, because you mattered, even when no one told you that you did, especially then. You are what remains. The root beneath the flower, the ember beneath the flame, the silence beneath the song. You are gone, but you are never absent, and you are loved forever. And now, all is quiet. The fire has burned low, the shutters have been drawn, the fields have fallen still beneath the moonlight, and the path through the village no longer echoes with footsteps. Everything that needed to be said has been spoken. Every thread of this woman's life, every hour she carried in her hands, every sorrow she never shared, every kindness she offered without being asked, has been gently placed before you. She is gone now, not gone in fear, not gone in silence, but gone like dusk fading into night, like bread cooling on a table, like the last verse of a lullaby that lingers even after the voice has ceased. And as you lie there, perhaps you see her, not as a stranger, but as something familiar, something remembered, a shape that echoes in the bones of all who came after. Maybe you see your mother in her, maybe you see your grandmother, maybe you see yourself, because in many ways, you were there too. In the garden, whispering prayers over seeds, at the hearth, watching the bread rise, in the field wiping sweat from your brow, in the cradle, cradling life, in the shadow, holding grief, in all those forgotten corners of time, where no books were written, no names were carved in stone. You were there, and you mattered. You still do, even now, even here, in this quiet space between waking and sleep. You carry her with you, her strength, her softness, her knowing. So let go now, let the weight of the day fall from your shoulders. Let the breath in your chest slow, let the rhythm of her story become the rhythm of your rest. You've walked far tonight, you've lived her life, from cradle to field, from fire to frost, from love to loss, and now it is time to sleep. The world will go on, the bread will rise again, the sun will return, and so will you. But for now, close your eyes, rest your hands, and remember, you are not alone. You are part of something vast, something quiet, something sacred. You are what remains, and you are home. Good night, sleep well, you've earned it.